The Roger Williams classic, Autumn Leaves. Of all the seasons, fall happens to be my favorite. I love this time of year. I love the way the air feels and smells. I love the cooler temperatures, and of course, I love seeing the transformation of the leaves. While trees are in a constant state of transformation all year round, fall seems to be the time that transformation is most present and obvious. Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "The only constant is change," and fall reminds us that the world is constantly developing and that we all need to embrace the present before it becomes the past. I love the visual beauty of this year, and I also love what that beauty represents. Transformation, rebirth, renewal, the beauty of the reality that we are all in a constant state of transformation. As a people of Christ, we are called to transformation. In Romans 12:2, we read, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And in 2 Corinthians 3:18, we read, "And all of us with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, the Spirit." We are a transformation people. We are transformed by God through the Spirit, continually transforming as individuals and as a community, and striving to transform the world. Yet, the act of transformation can at times be uncomfortable, scary, disorienting. Transformation can happen at inopportune and inconvenient moments, and yes, sometimes transformation can be painful. Yet, it's a part of life. I love this quote by Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert that says, "Human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think they're finished." Whether we want to or not, we're in a constant state of transformation. And we really can't hit the pause button. I mean, even if we wanted to. And if we could, who knows? Maybe this guy would be the one standing up here right now. So as humans, we can and do transform all the time, with the most intense time of transformation being childhood to adulthood. When seeing a picture or video of ourselves at a younger age, sometimes can be difficult to reconcile who we were at that time with who we are now. We know that we are, yet are also not the same person we were then. We are in the act of transformation. The same can be said for us as a church. When looking back at the church of the past, we are, yet we're also not the same church we were. As a church, we are also in a constant state of transformation. We continue to be the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren, even though, as far as I know, none of those original church members are among us. We aren't even in the same building, yet we continue to be the church. All of this can be very disorienting, especially in this era where change seems to happen faster than it's ever happened before. And just as we may have mixed feelings and emotions seeing old pictures of ourselves, we may have these same feelings when we're reminded of the church we were in the past. However, just as a butterfly cannot go back to being a caterpillar, as a church, we cannot go backward to who we were, but rather we must move forward as a transformed people working to transform the world. Whether it's a question or not we will ever know the answer to, it is fascinating to think whether a butterfly remembers when it was a caterpillar. And think of the identity crisis that would cause. Now, the ship of Theseus is a thought experiment that raises the question of whether an object that has all of its components replaced remains fundamentally the same object. And the concept is one of the oldest in Western philosophy. The story goes that the famous ship sailed by the hero Theseus was kept in a harbor as a museum piece. As the years went by, some of the wooden parts began to rot and were replaced with new ones. Then, after about 100 years or so, every part had been replaced. The question then is whether that restored ship is still the same as the original? Is it still the ship of Theseus? And are we still the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren? We are a transformation church, transformed by God, continually transforming as followers of Jesus, striving to transform the world. To say we've been through a lot together in this last year and a half could be the biggest understatement of the decade. Since early March of 2020, together as a community, we have experienced a global pandemic, a major presidential election, a nation that feels more divided than ever before, realities of racial injustice, and even conflicts within our own denomination. Within our church, we've experienced the loss of loved ones and the joy of welcoming new life and new church members. We've said goodbye to one pastor, we've welcomed another, and even our church building has undergone transformation. And just as the pandemic has transformed countless aspects of daily life, church is no exception. We continue to transform in order to meet the needs of our congregation, our community, and our world. Later today, we will come together as a church in prayer and in discernment as we plan how we will move forward as that transformed body of Christ. How will we be the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren? How will we transform the world? And as I said, in order to see where we're going, it can be helpful to look back at where we've come from, noting transformations that have occurred over the last year and a half. So I invite you to join me on this little brief trip through the past as we experience some of the highlights of the last year and a half.
Good morning. Welcome to Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren, where we practice peace, service, and openness to all. We're glad that you're here today. We're glad that you're braving this COVID-19 scare and reality to some degree. We want to be careful about that.
Yeah.
My name is Pastor Greg. This is Pastor Pam, and we're going to, in a little bit, show you the proper way to greet in these days. So hold that.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's an interesting statistics. Did you know that we have missed 64 uninterrupted Sundays of worship together in total? We haven't been here 64 weeks in a row. That's a long time. If you told us back in March of last year that we wouldn't gather here for 64 more Sundays, I think it would have blown our minds. 64 Sundays has felt like an eternity. It's a long time. At times, we may have felt like the Israelites wandering in the desert. For them, it was 40 years. But I wonder if they didn't feel some of what we have been feeling. They had spent many years in the wilderness, in the desert, and they had reached, finally, their destination. And now it was time to cross over to the Promised Land.
Elections are significant because they say something about what we as a people choose to do together. But love is more important because it gives energy and purpose to everything, at the polls and every day after. There will be a great deal of pain in the coming weeks and months. May we create space, create grace, and show love to each other no matter what happens in this election. Jesus may not be running for president, but we can live our lives every day as if he is.
And then I continued, should a couple ask to be married by making a covenant of love and commitment with God and with one another, then I believe that I am called to bless. And to support that union, regardless of their sexual orientation. It is my faithful response to the work and the joy of ministry to which God has called me.
Now's the time for us as a church to be bold and courageous, to build each other up, to empower one another. Now's the time for us to remove any change, structures, obstacles, or traditions that might be holding us back, to move forward, and to fully be the embodiment of God's hands and feet in the world, a world so desperately in need. We are here, we're together, and we are called by God to be living examples of Christ's love in the world, and God is far from finished with us yet. It's time to get up.
Into the unknown, into the unknown, into the unknown.
I worship you.
I worship you.
I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, you are.
Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness clear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and lands. Set your church on fire. Help us to love you back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I said, it's alright. How can there be any sin sincere? Where is the good in goodbye?
And each day you can walk in His way.
Each day you can walk in His way.
Each day you can walk in His way. And each day you can walk in His way. And each day.
Just you wait.
Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
You know, every dad is an expert at sleeping, and you know how we know that?
How's that?
Because every dad can do it with his eyes closed. Oh, that's great. All right, let's get to our next guest. He has a brand new animated movie about his life coming out. It's called Balaam in the Fantastic Biblical Adventure. Everybody, please give a warm morning show welcome to Balaam. Distance high five. Boom, boom, boom. You just sit. That's it. That's called a chair. So tell us a little bit about the movie. Have you seen the movie?
I don't even know what a movie is.
You don't know what a movie is?
No.
Okay.
'Cause we share the laughter and the pain, and even shed the tears. You're the only one who really knew me at all. So take a look at me now. is gone.
And the church is changing every single day, and it will require a great deal of creativity and ideas to do new and exciting things. And this will require seeing things from a different perspective and differing perspectives. It will call us away from our places of comfort and time-tested understandings of the world and of life itself. I have felt this call in my life. And here I am. Here I am, willing to go where God will lead and send all of us. And so the question that I have for you is this: will you go with me?
It's only the beginning. What I want to feel forever. Yeah.
We remember that we are part of a larger narrative, a narrative that is about peace, justice, mercy, reconciliation, enlightenment, transformation, service, and openness to all. And that together we can move mountains, banish fear, love our enemies, and change the world. So rise and shine, brothers and sisters. It is a new year, a new day, a new dawn. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed.
Freedom is mine. Now I know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
It's been quite a journey. Like the leaves on the trees, as a church, we are in a constant state of transformation. Our leaves change colors. Leaves fall off and die, while other new leaves grow. We have different pastoral leadership. We've grown in our faith and in our outreach. We've said goodbye to many. We've welcomed many. We've challenged ourselves. We transformed. Transformation is part of our calling and who we are as followers of Jesus. When we are baptized, we call this an outward sign of an inward transformation. We are learning how to be the church in this post-COVID-19 world. We continue to listen and follow God's call to explore, to learn, to grow. Transformation and growth are not without pain. For a muscle to grow, it needs to be broken down in order to rebuild itself stronger. And in a way, that's what we as a church are experiencing during this time. We've all experienced pain and brokenness. Yet, in that brokenness can be growth and transformation. We are a transformation people, transformed by God, continually transforming as individuals and as a community, striving to transform the world. We strive to transform the world into a kinder, more open, more loving, more equitable place, living out our core values of peace, service, and openness to all. We strive to transform the world into God's kingdom here on earth. A lofty goal for sure, but one we are called to nevertheless. But how do we do it? How do we, a transformed and transforming people ourselves, how do we transform the world? We know, like the tree whose leaves are transforming all year round, our roots are what hold us steady and keep us grounded. We also know that a tree is just more than branches and leaves, but all those parts coming together to make the whole. We all have unique talents, unique voices, experiences, backgrounds, ideas to share, and we can all do great things. We have a light to shine and songs to sing. And as we stay rooted in who we are and invite God's Spirit to move within us, we seek to go where God calls us. As we bring the best of ourselves to this task, we know we don't all need to be doing the same things, but we all do need to be on the same page, or at least singing the same song, so to speak. And while the voices, timbres, volume, and tempo may change over time, that song flows on. Like the ship of Theseus, we are a collection of constantly changing bodies, minds, emotions, circumstances, and quirks. Yet we continue to be the church. What is the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren? Is it this address, this building? Is it the current people here? Or is it something more? We've transformed. We are continuing to transform. Yet, we are still the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren, a church that practices peace, service, and openness to all. We are that church that rises to the occasion when a need is present. We are that church that speaks out against injustice of all kinds. We are that church that isn't afraid to stand against oppressive systems of power. We are that church that courageously answers God's call to love all in our church, all in our families, all in our community, and all in our world. We are the Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren, a transformation people, and we invite God to move within our midst.